The man I thought was my soulmate cheated on me, but instead of falling apart forever, I rose stronger. 3 months later, karma caught up with him hard. This is the story of how I turned heartbreak into the sweetest revenge. My name is Emily, and 3 months after the man I loved more than anything betrayed me, I shocked everyone, including him, by rising higher, healing faster, and reclaiming every ounce of my power. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. This is about how I turned betrayal into my ultimate revenge, and why, to this day, he can't stand to see me happy without him. If you've ever been cheated on, if you've ever given someone your heart only to have it shattered, then you know how badly we crave justice. And trust me, what you're about to hear is one of the most satisfying revenge arcs you'll ever experience. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into a story that proves healing is the best revenge. My name is Emily, and if you've ever had your heart shattered, you'll know that no words in the world can fully prepare you for the weight of betrayal. This is the story of how I went from being cheated on by the man I thought was my forever, to healing in just 3 months, and walking away stronger than I ever imagined. And let me tell you, the sweetest revenge isn't always dramatic. Sometimes, it's becoming so free and so happy that the person who broke you can't stand to watch your glow without them. Before everything collapsed, I thought I had it all. His name was Daniel. He wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my best friend, my partner in laughter, my safety net when life felt heavy. At least, that's who I thought he was. We met 2 years earlier at a friend's party. It wasn't one of those movie moments where sparks fly instantly, it was slower. He was funny, warm, and had this ability to make me feel seen in a room full of people. We ended up talking for hours that night about everything from our favorite childhood shows to our dreams for the future. By the end of it, I thought, maybe this guy could be different. Fast forward, and Daniel had woven himself into every corner of my life. Saturday mornings meant coffee runs together. Family dinners. He was always there, making my parents laugh. We had inside jokes, future plans, whispered promises at 2 a.m. when the world felt quiet and safe. Looking back, I see the signs I ignored, but at the time, he was my world. I'll never forget the night everything shattered. It was a Friday. I had just gotten home early from work, excited to surprise Daniel with takeout from his favorite Thai place. I remember the smell of the food filling the car, the warm boxes balanced in my hands as I walked up to his apartment. The door was unlocked. That alone gave me a weird feeling. Daniel was always careful. I stepped inside, expecting him to be on the couch, maybe playing video games or scrolling on his phone. But instead, I heard it. A laugh. A woman's laugh. High-pitched, careless, echoing from the bedroom. My stomach dropped so hard I swear I felt dizzy. My body moved before my brain could even process it. I walked straight to the bedroom door. My hand shook as I reached for the handle, part of me begging myself not to open it, to just turn around and leave. But I did. And there he was. Daniel. The man I thought I would spend my life with. Lying in bed with another woman. I froze in the doorway, Thai food slipping from my hands, boxes hitting the carpet with a dull thud. He looked up. His face went pale. The girl beside him clutched the sheets around herself, wide-eyed like a deer in headlights. Emily, he started, scrambling upright. But I didn't hear the rest. My ears rang. My chest felt like it was caving in. Every cell in my body screamed that this wasn't real. That this couldn't be happening. The only words that managed to leave my lips were, "Wow. I thought you loved me." I left. I don't even remember driving home. My hands were shaking so badly I almost couldn't grip the wheel. My face burned with hot tears, my throat raw from trying not to scream. That night, I sat on my bathroom floor with the shower running just to drown out the sound of my sobs. I kept replaying the moment over and over, his face, her laugh, the sheets, the betrayal. And worse, my mind turned on me. Was I not enough? Was I boring? Did I do something wrong? I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. By morning, the reality hit harder. He had texted me. "Daniel, Emily, I can explain. It's not what it looked like. Daniel, please talk to me. I messed up but I love you. Daniel, can we meet? Please, just hear me out." Every message made my stomach twist. How dare he? After destroying everything, he wanted me to give him space to explain. But here's the ugly truth. Part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me wanted to pretend it was a mistake, that maybe forgiveness would make the pain go away. That's the thing about betrayal, it warps your mind, makes you question your own worth. For 2 days, I lived in that cycle. Reading his texts. Staring at my phone. Crying until I couldn't anymore. Then, on the 3rd day, something inside me shifted. I looked in the mirror, eyes swollen, hair a mess, shoulders slumped. And I realized, this wasn't me. Daniel had already taken enough. He had taken my trust, my peace, my love. And here I was, handing him more by letting his words control me. So, with shaking hands, I picked up my phone. Block. His number. Block. His email. Block. Every single social media account. Each click felt like a knife, painful, terrifying. What if he changed? What if he showed up? What if cutting him off was wrong? But underneath the fear, there was something else. Something I hadn't felt since before the betrayal. Relief. For the first time, I could breathe. The silence was deafening, yes, but in that silence, there was also space. Space for me. Space to finally start healing. Don't get me wrong, blocking him wasn't some magical cure. The nights were brutal. I'd roll over in bed and instinctively reach for my phone, expecting his goodnight text. Nothing. I'd wake up and remember he wasn't mine anymore. I was scared. Terrified that I'd never find love again. Terrified that maybe I was the problem, that maybe I'd always be too much or not enough. But every time those fears rose, I reminded myself, he chose to betray me. That is not my fault. Slowly, I began to understand something life-changing. Taking responsibility for my healing didn't mean blaming myself. It meant reclaiming my power. And in that realization, the foundation for my revenge, not dramatic, not cruel, but deeply satisfying, began to take shape. Because the best revenge wasn't exposing him, or begging for answers I'd never get. It was choosing me. When the storm hits, you either drown or you learn to float. I chose to float, and in the process, I discovered a part of myself I didn't even know existed. The first week after cutting Daniel off was chaos. My emotions felt like a runaway train. Anger, sadness, regret, disbelief, every feeling crashed through me in waves. But I remembered something a friend once told me, you can't control what others do, only how you react. And that hit me like a brick. For months, I had given Daniel power over my happiness. His love, his attention, his approval. I had tied my self-worth to him. And when he betrayed me, it felt like the rug had been pulled from under my entire existence. I realized that if I wanted to heal, I had to reclaim that power. I had to stop giving him ownership over my emotions. So I started small. Morning check-ins. I'd wake up and ask myself, how do I feel? Why do I feel this way? Journaling, not just venting, but dissecting my emotions. I asked myself, am I sad because of him, or because I've been neglecting myself? Affirmations. I began saying things aloud I never imagined saying. I am enough. I deserve respect. I am not defined by his choices. At first, it felt awkward. Ridiculous, even. But slowly, I started to notice something incredible, a shift. The anger that had consumed me was still there, yes, but it no longer ruled me. As I journaled, I started identifying patterns. Why had I let Daniel control me so completely? Why had I blamed myself for his choices? I realized, I had spent years allowing my emotions to be dictated by his actions. Every smile, every text, every word of praise or criticism had shaped how I felt about myself. But now, with him out of my life, I had space. Space to see clearly. Space to recognize that his betrayal was his fault, not mine. I could almost hear my own voice saying, you are not the cause of this. You are not broken. You are not at fault. And with that realization came relief. Sweet, liberating relief. Once I stopped obsessing over Daniel, I began focusing on me. I reintroduced rituals I had neglected, cooking healthy meals just because they made me feel strong. Working out, not to impress anyone, but to reclaim my body and energy. Rereading old books that inspired me, long-forgotten passions that reminded me who I truly was. I even started meditating, 10 minutes a day, just to listen to my own mind without judgment. The more I nurtured myself, the more I realized how much energy I had wasted on him. Anger, worry, sleepless nights, all of it was gone now, redirected toward building my own life. I felt lighter, freed, powerful. As I focused inward, I naturally began attracting new people into my life. I joined a local book club. At first, I was nervous. Would people judge me for showing up alone? For being newly broken? But instead, I found warmth, curiosity, laughter. I found women and men who cared about deep conversations, who celebrated each other's victories, who listened when life got messy. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected. We laughed about past memories, supported each other through struggles, and celebrated small wins like promotions or new hobbies. One weekend, a friend invited me to a hiking group. I agreed, thinking it was just a casual walk in the woods. By the end of the day, I had met people who shared my sense of humor, my ambitions, my love of adventure. For the first time in years, I felt part of a community that truly saw me not as someone's girlfriend, not as someone's ex, but as Emily. Every time I laughed, every time I shared a moment of joy with someone new, I felt Daniel's shadow shrinking further. My life was no longer about him. While I was rebuilding my life, Daniel was unraveling. I heard from mutual friends that he kept messaging the wrong people, posting cryptic statuses about lost love and mistakes. He asked our old friends for updates, wondering where I was, what I was doing. I didn't answer. I didn't engage. And that, right there, was the quietest, sweetest form of revenge. Because while he was stuck replaying his choices, I was thriving. My joy, my laughter, my energy, all things he once controlled, were now mine, unshackled. Every time I went to a new brunch spot with friends, or attended a workshop, or traveled for a weekend getaway, I felt a quiet thrill. He couldn't touch this. He had no power here. Some people think revenge requires confrontation, drama, or exposure. But the truth I discovered was far more satisfying. Revenge could be silent. It could be beautiful. It could be my happiness, my strength, my freedom. Every moment I felt confident without him. Every time I laughed without worrying about his opinions. Every time I nurtured a new friendship or passion, that was my power asserting itself. I began to see the irony. The man who tried to break me only built the version of myself I had always wanted to become. It wasn't immediate, but I started noticing the ripple effects of my choices. Friends who had admired me from afar now genuinely respected me. People who had dismissed my worth suddenly realized I had boundaries, strength, and self-respect. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed increasingly isolated. No one wanted to hear his excuses anymore. Mutual friends avoided his complaints about me. He had burned bridges while I had been rebuilding. And that's when I understood the true power of silent revenge. I didn't need to confront him. I didn't need to argue. All I needed was to live my life fully and let karma quietly do the rest. By the third month, I could honestly say I was happy again. Not just superficially, but deep down in a way that I hadn't felt in years. I could walk past places we used to go together and not feel a pang of sadness. I could scroll social media without needing to see what he was doing. I could even laugh at memes that reminded me of him because he no longer had the power to hurt me. I had created a space for myself that was untouched by his betrayal, untainted by his lies, and completely my own. And in that space, I realized something profound. This is the real revenge. Thriving. Living freely. Being unapologetically me. I realized that sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't a confrontation, a scream, or an expose. Sometimes, it's living so well that the person who broke you can't stand to watch it. By month 4, my life had completely shifted. I signed up for a pottery class, something I'd always been curious about but never dared to try. The clay felt cool and soft between my fingers, molding under my touch. I found that when I was creating, I wasn't thinking about him. I was fully present, shaping, molding, creating something tangible with my own 2 hands. I also began hosting small gatherings at my apartment. Friends I had met through the hiking club, book club, and work all came together. Laughter echoed through my living room. There was wine, music, storytelling, and energy I hadn't felt in years. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I smiled quietly, knowing Daniel wasn't part of this. Every invitation I sent, every story I shared, every belly laugh I let loose, it was all a silent declaration: I am thriving without you. Of course, Daniel noticed. Mutual friends started telling me about it. Daniel keeps asking where you are. He saw a photo of you at the pottery class and texted me. He's complaining that he hasn't heard from you. Says he doesn't understand why you're ignoring him. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. But I felt a strange thrill reading his reactions secondhand. He was panicking. He was realizing that the control he once had over my happiness had slipped through his fingers. And the more I thrived, the more desperate he seemed. The first time I truly felt it, it was subtle. I wore a bright red dress to a brunch with friends. The sunlight hit the fabric just right. My friends laughed, I laughed, and for the first time in months, I looked in the mirror and thought, I look amazing. And I feel amazing. Later, one of my mutual friends told me Daniel had called, asking if he could drop by and talk. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. My revenge didn't need to be dramatic. Instead, it was layered, slow, and almost imperceptible, like a song that sneaks up on you. Confidence in public. I walked through our old favorite cafe without hesitation. Friends greeted me, strangers smiled. I noticed Daniel watching from across the street one day, shoulders tense, jaw tight. Flourishing professionally, I started working extra hours on a project I was passionate about, receiving praise from colleagues. Every message congratulating me on a promotion or achievement hit Daniel's social feeds through mutual friends, little reminders of what he had lost. Sharing life openly. On social media, I posted pictures from hikes, pottery class, book club outings. Nothing was pointed, nothing malicious, just life. Yet each snapshot was a whisper of a reality he no longer influenced. I could almost feel the energy shift. He was watching, panicking, trying to recapture something he had already lost. And I wasn't stopping. Daniel had always expected me to react predictably. Angry texts, confrontations, tears. But I became unpredictable. Calm. Radiant. Unbothered. Once, he tried texting late at night. Daniel, Emily, I miss you. Can we talk? I didn't reply. Instead, I went out to a night market with friends. The air smelled of roasted corn, spices, and fresh flowers. We wandered between stalls, laughing at the ridiculousness of the handmade hats, taking pictures, trying new foods. Each sensory detail, the smell, the sounds, the laughter, contrasted sharply with the chaos he was experiencing. He saw me smiling, thriving, moving on. And he had no control over it. As the weeks passed, Daniel's behavior became more erratic. Friends reported, he lingered around places he knew I frequented. He sent long messages apologizing, begging, attempting to guilt me. He even spread rumors trying to make me look crazy or unstable. But none of it reached me. I was untouchable now, emotionally fortified. I remember one afternoon vividly. I was walking through the park with a few new friends, laughing over some inside joke. The sun was warm on my skin, leaves rustled in a gentle breeze. Across the path, I noticed Daniel sitting on a bench, slouched, scrolling on his phone. Our eyes met for a brief second. He looked small, vulnerable, panicked. And for the first time, I felt a thrill. Not cruelty, satisfaction. This was karma. This was the universe balancing itself. I began to actively embrace experiences that would magnify this subtle revenge. Travel. I booked a weekend getaway to the coast with friends. The waves crashed against the rocks, salt in my hair, wind whipping past my face. I felt alive. New hobbies, painting classes, yoga retreats, spontaneous road trips. Each adventure reminded me of my autonomy, my freedom. Celebrations, birthday dinner with laughter and candles. Toasting to life, not him. Each moment was a silent message. I am flourishing. You are no longer in control. The more I thrived, the more Daniel's anxiety grew. He began sending mutual friends desperate messages, trying to find out what I was doing. He even attempted to orchestrate encounters, hoping to catch me alone and manipulate me back. But I was always 3 steps ahead. I would smile, wave politely if I saw him at a distance, and continue with my life. I had learned something profound: when you take responsibility for your happiness, no one else has the power to steal it. By the 5th month, I realized the truth. My revenge didn't need to be dramatic. It didn't need confrontation, shouting, or humiliation. The ultimate revenge was my life radiant, vibrant, full. And Daniel couldn't stand it. Every mutual friend who celebrated my victories, every photo of me smiling at a sunset, every post of me learning something new, it chipped away at him. I had created something he could never touch, a version of myself stronger than he had ever imagined. And that realization, that my happiness was untouchable, was intoxicating. Revenge isn't always about revenge. Sometimes, it's about letting your life shine so bright that the person who broke you can't help but watch, powerless. And that's exactly what happened with Daniel. It was a Saturday afternoon when the culmination began. I was hosting a small gathering at my apartment, friends, laughter, music, warmth. The sun poured through the windows, casting golden light across the room. There was the faint smell of jasmine from the candles I had lit, mingling with the aroma of fresh pastries I had baked myself. And then I heard it, Daniel's voice, almost a whisper at the doorway. I didn't flinch. My heart didn't race. Instead, I turned slowly, met his eyes, and smiled. Calm. Radiant. Unshakable. "Emily, can we talk?" he asked, a tremor in his voice. I shook my head gently, the corners of my lips curling. "I don't think we have anything to say to each other," I replied, my voice steady, warm, almost maternal in its calmness. Inside, I felt a surge of power I had never experienced before. This wasn't just defiance. This was liberation. He staggered slightly, as if my composure physically struck him. The panic in his eyes was unmistakable. For the first time, he realized that the woman he had tried to control, the woman he had betrayed, had grown beyond him. I don't understand. Why won't you answer me? I love you," he stammered, desperation cracking his voice. I leaned back, sipping my tea, and allowed the silence to stretch. His frustration built visibly, every muscle in his body tense. I could almost feel the weight of his regret pressing down like a storm cloud. He watched me, unable to comprehend that I no longer needed him, that I had thrived in his absence. Every failed attempt to provoke a reaction from me, every frantic plea, made him smaller, weaker, less in control than ever before. I took a slow breath, letting the moment sink in. The air smelled faintly of my perfume, lavender and cedar, grounding me in the present, my domain. The room hummed with laughter and music, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling inside Daniel. I raised a toast with my friends. To growth, to strength, and to the people who never let us forget our worth. He watched silently, powerless, as the people I had surrounded myself with cheered, hugged, and laughed. This was the life he had tried to control, and now he could only observe. I could see it in his eyes: jealousy, shame, panic, and the realization that he had lost more than he could ever regain. Every misstep, every lie, every betrayal had led to this, his utter impotence in the face of my thriving. I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness, but from relief and triumph. All the nights spent crying, all the moments I doubted myself, all the pain, it had led to this liberation. I took a deep breath, feeling my chest expand with power and self-ownership. My smile wasn't just a mask. It was proof. Proof that I had healed, that I had risen, that I had reclaimed every ounce of energy he had tried to steal. Daniel tried one last desperate plea. "Emily, please. I can fix this. I'll do anything." I shook my head, my voice gentle but firm. "Daniel, this isn't about fixing anything. This is about me living my life fully, without you. And I already have." He sank into a chair, defeated, the weight of reality pressing down. His eyes darted around the room, at my friends, at me, at the life I had rebuilt. Every glance was a silent acknowledgement of his failure, every movement a testament to his impotence. Over the next few weeks, Daniel tried to regain control in subtle ways, sending messages, showing up at places he thought I'd be, even attempting mutual friends as messengers. But I didn't respond. I didn't flinch. I thrived. And slowly, I began hearing whispers from mutual friends. Daniel seems different now. He's quieter. People say he keeps replaying what he lost. He's not dating anyone, not really connecting. He seems stuck. He keeps asking about you. No one answers him anymore. I realized that justice, karma, and emotional payback didn't always need drama. My happiness, my freedom, my thriving, that was the revenge. And Daniel was powerless to stop it. By the 6th month, I was fully untethered. I traveled to a coastal town with my new friends, feeling the wind whip past my hair, the sun warm on my skin, the waves crashing against the rocks. I painted, laughed, danced, and lived fully. Each sensory moment, the smell of the ocean, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter reminded me that life could be beautiful, even after heartbreak. I started mentoring younger colleagues at work, sharing lessons about self-worth, boundaries, and resilience. I realized that helping others reclaim their power amplified my own. And every time I looked back on Daniel, I felt nothing but quiet satisfaction. The man who had shattered my trust had become a ghost in my story, irrelevant, powerless, and unable to touch the life I was creating. The final piece of my silent revenge came naturally. Mutual friends began recounting stories. Daniel had tried to manipulate someone at work, but his reputation preceded him. He had spread rumors, but no one believed him. My strength and composure had protected me. Attempts to insert himself back into social circles failed, leaving him isolated. Meanwhile, I laughed, thrived, and built a life that reflected everything he could never take away. The universe had delivered him a poetic justice. And the truth was clear. I didn't need to orchestrate it. I simply needed to live. Sitting on my balcony one evening, the city lights twinkling below, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. I sipped my tea, inhaled the crisp night air, and smiled. I had loved, I had been betrayed, I had been broken, but I had risen. I had reclaimed my power, rebuilt my life, and thrived in ways Daniel could never imagine. And that, I realized, was the ultimate revenge. Not cruelty. Not confrontation. Not humiliation. Freedom, happiness, and unwavering self-worth. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and whispered to myself, "Thank you for teaching me my value. Thank you for showing me how strong I could be." The tears I let fall this time were different. They were cathartic. They were proof. Proof that I had survived, conquered, and risen. Sometimes, the hardest battles we fight aren't against others. They're against the fear, doubt, and pain inside ourselves. And when we win those, everything else falls into place. Looking back, I can see now that Daniel's betrayal, while devastating, was a turning point, a painful catalyst that forced me to confront myself. At the time, I felt shattered. I blamed myself, questioned my worth, and wondered if I would ever trust again. Nights were long, tears plentiful, and hope fleeting. But through that pain, I learned something crucial. Betrayal doesn't define us. Our response does. I realized that for too long, I had given my power to someone else. I allowed Daniel's actions, his moods, and his choices to dictate how I felt about myself. And when I reclaimed that power, by blocking him, by focusing on myself, by nurturing my passions and friendships, I discovered an undeniable truth. My happiness wasn't dependent on anyone else. It had always been within me. Through this journey, I learned several lessons I want to share with anyone who's experienced betrayal. Your emotions are yours, not theirs. Feeling anger, sadness, or disappointment is natural. But letting someone else control those feelings gives them power. Take responsibility for your experience, and you regain your freedom. Healing is a choice. It doesn't happen overnight, and it isn't passive. You have to actively decide to prioritize yourself, to nurture your mind, body, and soul, and to step away from toxic influences. Happiness is the ultimate revenge. You don't need drama, confrontation, or humiliation to prove your strength. Simply living fully, thriving, and showing resilience is more powerful than any petty act of payback. Community matters. Surround yourself with people who uplift, support, and value you. They're your anchor, your mirror, and your motivation. True friends celebrate you, not the mistakes of those who hurt you. Self-worth is non-negotiable. Once I understood my value, nothing Daniel did, not betrayal, not guilt-tripping, not manipulation, could touch me. That is where real power lies. People often ask me, wasn't it satisfying to get revenge? And I tell them, my revenge wasn't about him. It was about me. Every step I took to reclaim my life, rebuild my confidence, nurture friendships, pursue passions, and prioritize joy, that was my revenge. Daniel didn't get to see me crumble. He didn't get to manipulate me anymore. And the beauty of it, he noticed anyway. He felt the consequences of his actions through the life I created. True revenge, I learned, isn't about cruelty. It's about transforming pain into power, loss into growth, and heartbreak into liberation. For anyone struggling after betrayal, here's what I want you to remember. Don't dwell on why they did it. You'll never truly understand, and obsessing over it steals your energy. Stop trying to expose or punish them. Your life is your stage. Show them what they lost through your happiness, not their humiliation. Start with yourself. Begin the healing process today, even if it's small steps: journaling, exercising, reconnecting with friends. Every step matters. Celebrate progress. Every day you choose yourself over pain, you win. Every small victory compounds into freedom. Healing doesn't erase the past, but it rewrites your story. It transforms betrayal into a lesson, heartbreak into resilience, and loss into liberation. So here I am today, months later, fully untethered from the past, thriving in my career, surrounded by people who love me, and living a life that feels purposeful and free. I smile when I think about Daniel, not because I wish him harm, but because I finally understand, my power wasn't in punishing him. It was in rising above. And if you're watching this, struggling with betrayal, heartbreak, or loss, I want you to know, you can rise too. Your happiness, your peace, your life, it's yours to reclaim. Take that first step. Set boundaries. Nurture yourself. Surround yourself with those who lift you. And slowly, quietly, the world will notice. If this story resonated with you, here's what I want you to do. Hit that like button if you believe in reclaiming your power. Subscribe for more stories of strength, healing, and satisfying life lessons. Comment below, what's the most empowering way you've taken control after heartbreak? Remember, revenge isn't always about drama. Sometimes, it's just living your best life, unapologetically. And trust me, it's the sweetest revenge of all.